Most people have never been taught how to apologize. They've been taught how to defend themselves in the shape of an apology. There's a difference. Most people think they know how to apologize. They don't. And the proof is that the worst apologies of the last year were under 50 words. April 13th, 2026. Sabrina Carpenter is on stage at Coachella. A fan in the crowd lets out a high, trilling sound. She doesn't recognize it. She mocks it as yodeling. The next day, she posts an apology on X, 50 words long. And within hours, the apology is the bigger story. The apology was short, casual, self-deprecating, everything you've been told to do, and it didn't work, which means everything you've been told about apologies, that brevity equals sincerity, that simple is safe, that less is more, didn't save it. Bad apologies are not long apologies. Bad apologies are armored apologies. Some armor is long and elaborate. Some armor is short and breezy. Length is not the rule, something else is. You've done a smaller version. The text where you said sorry but kept explaining. The reply where you owned 10% and defended 90%. The half apology that escalated the fight instead of ending it. You felt the moment halfway through writing when the apology stopped being about them and started being about you. In this video, you're going to learn how to apologize. Not the way you were taught, the way that actually works. We'll see the mechanism that turns every apology into a defense, why your mind reaches for armor at the exact moment it should be still. We'll see why you specifically keep doing this, the childhood reward that taught you that articulation is safety. We'll find the 3 tells of an armored apology, and we'll land on a single rule, 3 lines long, that survives any apology you'll ever owe. By the end of this, you'll know how to apologize in 3 lines, and you'll see Carpenter's words and your own differently. Most people think they're bad at apologizing. They're not. They've just never been shown how to do it without armor. To see what that means, we have to start with the apology you remember most and what it felt like the moment you realized it had failed. The apology that made it worse. You can probably picture it now. The long text apology you sent at 1 in the morning. You meant every word. You wrote it twice, and by the next afternoon, the relationship was in worse shape than before you sent it. Or maybe it wasn't a text. Maybe it was in person. You opened with what you wanted to acknowledge. Then a small word arrived almost without you noticing it, the word but. And from there it became a different speech. You felt yourself reaching for context. You watched their face change. That moment, the moment halfway through your apology where you realized it had become about you, your remorse, your understanding, your articulate description of how it happened. That moment is what this video is about. You've been on the other side too. A friend half apologized to you and kept explaining. You listened, knowing the words were sincere and felt something unmistakable. The apology wasn't repair. It was someone trying to feel less bad about what they did. This happens to thoughtful people more, not less. Because your articulation, the gift that served you everywhere else, is the thing that betrays you here. The same intelligence that makes you understand exactly what you did wrong is what fills the apology with 100 small justifications you didn't know you were making. Brene Brown spent 2 decades studying how people respond to shame. Her central finding was simple. We don't avoid shame by feeling it. We avoid it by armoring against it. Every word of armor we add is a quiet refusal to be small for 1 minute. And what makes this hard to see, especially in your own apologies, is that the armor doesn't feel like armor when you're putting it on. It feels like care. It feels like clarity. It feels like the responsible thing to do. But here's what no one tells you about why this keeps happening and why your mind reaches for armor at the exact moment it should be still. The armor inside the sorry. This is where Brene Brown's work becomes essential. Brown spent decades studying shame and the way humans manage it. Her insight, made plain, is that an apology is the moment in human life that requires you to feel small, briefly, on purpose. And the human mind has a long, sophisticated relationship with refusing to feel small. What happens inside an apology is a quiet loop. shame surfaces. The mind generates a defensive thought. The defensive thought feels like care, like clarity, like wanting the other person to understand. So you write it down. And by the time you've written it, the apology has been replaced by something else, dressed in apology-shaped clothing. Inside every apology, two things compete: armor, which defends the self, and ownership, which centers the harmed person. Whichever wins the word count, the audience reads. This is the ratio. And the ratio, not the length, is the rule. Look at what Sabrina Carpenter actually wrote, 50 words. The apology opens with this: "I didn't see this person with my eyes and couldn't hear clearly." That sentence is the explanation arriving before the acknowledgement. Then she writes that her reaction was pure confusion, sarcasm, and not ill-intended. That sentence is the intent shield, the defense of motive. Then she writes, "Could have handled it better." That is the only piece of pure ownership in the entire apology. One sentence, 5 words. And then it ends with a cheerful pivot. "Now I know what a zagruta is. I welcome all cheers and yodels from here on out." That is a tonal flip back to the apologizer's mood. So in 50 words, the ratio is roughly 4 parts armor to 1 part ownership. The apology is short. It is also armored. The brevity didn't save it, because length was never the rule. This means a long apology with the right ratio can land. A short apology with the wrong ratio cannot. Most of what you've been taught about apologies is about length. Be brief. Be sincere. Don't over-explain. None of it survives Carpenter's 50 words. Brown calls this the curse of the well-defended apology. The moment you start protecting yourself from feeling small, the apology stops being an apology. But the question now is sharper. If every human armors against shame, why do you specifically keep reaching for the same armor, over and over in the same shape? Why you specifically over-explain? You don't reach for armor at random. You reach for the kind your childhood rewarded. And for a particular kind of person, the armor of choice was never silence or denial, it was articulation. If you grew up being praised for being articulate, for being the thoughtful one, for explaining yourself clearly, you learned something deep. You learned that words protect you, that if you can describe what you did and why, you can stay safe. So when shame shows up, your mind reaches for the tool that's worked your entire life. Explain. Underneath the armor is a hidden belief, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The belief sounds like this: if I prove I understood what I did, they will forgive me faster. This sounds like humility. It is a control move dressed as humility. There is a second belief beneath that one. Silence equals abandonment. To stay connected to the person you might have hurt, you must keep speaking. You must keep producing words, and so you do, past the point where speaking helps. The result is that your apologies are written by the part of you that's afraid. Afraid the relationship will end. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of being seen as small. The apologies are not written by the part of you that's actually sorry. The two parts of you are wearing the same coat. Carl Rogers, one of the great psychologists of the 20th century, wrote a line that lands here. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Apology is the small version of that paradox. Until you can let yourself feel small, briefly, you cannot do the one thing the apology actually requires. Once you see this in yourself, you start seeing it everywhere. In every apology you've ever watched, including Carpenter's, in every apology you've ever sent, the pattern is not invisible anymore. And once you can see the pattern, the question becomes specific. What are the tells? The 3 tells. There are 3 tells of an armored apology. Once you know them, you cannot read an apology again without seeing them, including your own. Tell number 1, the word if. If I caused harm, if anyone felt hurt, if you were upset. The if transfers the burden of the harm from the apologizer to the offended. A real apology does not conditional its way around the impact. The harm either happened or it didn't. The if is armor. Tell number 2, context before acknowledgement. It was a long day, and the explanation comes first. The acknowledgement, if it arrives as a clause. The order matters. The mind puts armor where its attention goes first, and the mind that goes to context first is a mind protecting itself. Tell number 3, centering the apologizer's own feelings. I felt terrible afterwards. I couldn't sleep. The apologizer's discomfort becomes the subject. The harmed person becomes a witness to regret. This is the most common tell, and the hardest to see in your own writing. Now look at Carpenter's apology with the tells in mind. I didn't see this person with my eyes and couldn't hear clearly. That is, tell 2, context before acknowledgement. My reaction was pure confusion, sarcasm, not ill-intended. Tell 2 again, plus an intent shield. Now I know what a zagrita is, a soft version of tell 3, a pivot to the apologizer's growth. 3 signs of a real apology. 1, it names the act in plain language with no qualifier. 2, it describes the impact from the recipient's view, not the apologizer's. 3, it pledges what changes, 3 things, and no fourth. Now that you can see the pattern, the question becomes simple. What do you actually do? What is the rule that survives every apology you'll ever owe? The 3-line rule. Here is the rule. 3 things, no fourth. Anything you add beyond the 3rd thing is armor, even when it sounds like care. Line 1, name the act. Not what happened, not the situation, not a regrettable incident. What you did, use the active verb. Use your own name as the subject of the sentence. Line 2, own the impact. From their view, not yours. Not, I felt awful afterwards. Try, that dismissed something that mattered to you. Try, that made you feel like the relationship wasn't safe. The pronouns matter. You is the subject of the impact, not I. Line 3, pledge the change. Specific, tied to a moment. Not, I'll be more careful. Try, the next time someone makes a sound I don't recognize on stage, I'll ask, not perform. Specific behavior, specific trigger. The change is something the other person could verify if they wanted to. Here is how to install the rule into your life. The next time you owe someone an apology, write it twice. The long, honest version stays in your drafts. You can be as articulate as you want there. That is for you. The 3-line version is the one you send. That is for them. And here is the trigger. The next time someone calls you out and you feel the urge to explain, pause. That urge is the armor reaching for its weight. Pause is where the rule lives. 3 lines, then send. Viktor Frankl wrote one of the most quoted lines in psychology. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. The space is where you write the long version. The 3 lines are what survives the space. And the objection that always rises here is real. But they need to understand the context. They don't. If they want context, they will ask. The apology is not where you teach them. The apology is where you stop the bleeding. What apology was always for? Here is the reframe that changes everything. An apology is not a performance. It is a small surgery. Quick, clean, painful, healing. And so the permission this video offers is this. You can stop trying to apologize well and start apologizing honestly. You can stop performing your remorse and start owning it. They are not the same thing. They were never the same thing. Every armored apology is a sentence written by your fear. Fear that they will see you as small. Fear that the relationship is ending. The armor is not strength. It is the shape your fear takes when it is given words. The math, one more time. In every apology, 2 things compete. Armor and ownership. Whichever wins the word count, the audience reads. So make ownership win, even if it costs you the chance to be understood. Here is how to apologize. 3 lines. No fourth, name the act. Own the impact. Pledge the change. That's the apology. Everything else belongs in your drafts. And the audience watching matters less than the person you actually hurt. They are not your judge. They are your witness, at most. The relationship that needs repair is between you and the person you wronged. Make ownership win for them, not for the watchers. You are going to feel small for a moment. That is the point. Apology is the only ritual we have where feeling small is the entire purpose. The rule is what carries you through it. Carpenter is just a person who did what most people do. She had a bad moment on a stage. She wrote a 50-word apology that defended more than it owned. She is not the villain. She is the example. Here is what the 3-line version of her apology might have read. I dismissed a fan's Zach Ruda as yodeling. That treated a real cultural celebration as a joke. From now on, when I don't recognize a sound on stage, I will ask. 3 lines, no fourth. Apology was never a chance for you to be understood. It was never a chance to perform your insight. It was always one thing, a small ritual where you choose the person you hurt over the version of yourself you were trying to protect. So when you've done harm, the person you should be most afraid to disappoint is the one you hurt, not the audience watching, not the version of you that needs to feel articulate, the one you hurt. Everything else is armor. If this landed, stay. Because next we're going somewhere harder, into the apologies you've never sent, the ones still waiting in your drafts, and what to do with them when there's no one left to write to.